All right, we're rolling. Let's get into it. This Freedom Phil likes describing what's the topic? The way some people go about saying, you just have kids to keep your society going. I gotta be honest, sometimes the way they describe it, I'm like, look, I've seen most people's parenting, and it's not really that great of a job. And they talk about not having kids as some sort of perpetual adolescence. Well, I want to go through that. I want to talk about that. This has to do with Sargon of Akkad. I've watched this stuff for years, and I like a lot of his opinions, but some of the stuff with kids, it's like this fake propagandic war chant about having kids. And I want to point out something that I find really funny about it. By the way, Freedom Phil likes to describe. Sargon was pretty much a leftist for ages. Not like a far leftist. He's a traditional line of thinking, more conservative, what we consider more conservative, classic liberal. And it just seems like your country, now that it's suffering the effects of too many programs, and this is really one of the points I want to get down to. Do you really care about these children you're producing? Or is it you're worried that your society will be consumed, destroyed by some other culture that comes in and outproduces you? They have kids. And ask yourself, why did you ever let these people into your country? And the answer is fairly simple. Because you had a huge welfare system. And you needed fresh bodies to pay the capital into the taxes. And it turns out you brought the worst people in. And they're not contributing. They're a net negative. So now, now that you got problems, now that you got third world problems in what used to be a first world country, I'm going to say it. England is a second world country at this point. It is. A lot of Europe is. It's a comfortable second world country. It used to be first world. Now there's a nativist movement, to make sure that your people have kids and all this crap. But I just got to point these things out. Are you going to actually make the situation better for the average person to raise a family in? And the answer is, oh no, we're just going to kind of badger you and tell you should have kids and the culture and all this crap. Because see, this is one of the things I think is ironic. As a person who's actually knows how to, the hero's journey. Like live efficiently, live as cheap as possible, get into investing as young as possible. When I see these people talking about you need to have children, the transformative experience of having children. For a second here, just imagine if you didn't have all these government systems in place to where your life is as cushy as it is. Would you be saying that? And I'm not just talking about people on welfare. I'm talking about the situation like your public schools. I imagine in Europe, they're paid for by the government as well. Oh, paid for by the people. If you didn't have all these things set up so you don't fail as a parent, and even then, you still fail because your kids are being raised to be what? Just another generation of consumers. And this goes into the whole problem. You have a bunch of people that are taught to piss away their money, consume as much as possible, show off while they're consuming, and then inevitably, at the end of it, hopefully there's a social system to take care of these old people. And that isn't, it's getting to the point now where we're realizing, frankly, there's a lot of people that are having kids. I don't care whether you're third world or first world. These people are sub-IQ individuals. Oh, great. So we're going to produce a bunch of dummies out there that can't even really find a job that's worth a damn because they just don't have the thinking meat up in there to really do anything, to become anything. Let's make more of those people. See, my outlook on the whole idea of reproduction is, number one, we need to get rid of this whole subsidized system. It's one thing if you want to privately help somebody. If you want to set up an organization to help people, that's perfectly fine, but that's your business. That's what you're doing. It should not be a government apparatus that basically pampers people from the moment they're conceived. Prenatal care, then birth, then diapers, this, that, everything. Everything basically, it's like we're raising farm animals and not people. This entire system that pampers you your whole fucking way, and then inevitably, what ends up happening? The people that are lesser quality individuals, education, whatnot, and I'm sorry, there are times with a lot of people in the world, you can throw as much education, money into education, but some people are just fucking dim. They are. They're just dim. So if we're producing individuals like that to save the culture, and it's all just a numbers game, and mostly it's just to save the pension system, to save the NHS in America, to save Social Security, to save the welfare system, to save somebody else getting a free ride off of you. That's what it is. What are we really doing? And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The proper way to do things, which is not supported by our current system, is to go do the hero's journey. Learn a trade or a skill as young as possible. Get into the system, make money, live as cheap as possible in the early game, and then invest. That way your money's making you money. You're the investor class. And then once you've got enough to where you've got, let's say, I don't know, $30,000 to $50,000 being produced by your investments every year. That sounds like a lot, but like really, that's only like 5 to 6 years of hard work if you were trucking or doing some sort of hardcore job. And then go out buy a cheap piece of land or a cheap house somewhere in the country, and then you're good to go for the rest of your life. But here is the problem. And this is one of the reasons why some of the best people out there aren't having kids. You did all that work. You built yourself up to being something incredible. And then you meet what you think is the right person. And for a while, it's great. And then you have a couple kids. And then he or she, let's just usually go with the usual numbers, she decides, I'm bored. You got social media, her friends, the whole world telling her that she can always do better. So then she walks away of half the shit you worked for. I don't think it's an adolescent mindset. Because that's the thing that gets on my nerves about a lot of these preachy breeder types. It's an adolescent mindset to want to live and blah, blah, blah. Live like this your whole life. Fuck you, dude. Not everybody. Basically got lucky on YouTube. And then they got a big channel. Okay? Let's be fucking real about it. The rest of us out there trudging in the trenches, we actually have to deal with the day-to-day trudge and war and whatnot of life. These fucking sanctimonious fucks that talk about, just having kids. What? Having them into... Okay, so if you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain by having kids, I guess, maybe. But so what you're really saying is, just crank out some kids when you're young. Be a loser. Yeah, here's a wild thought for Sargon and all the other types that want to save their cultures. You won't get the best men out there saving your fucking cultures until the day you at least acknowledge what needs to be fixed in the divorce courts and child custody. Until you get that. And by the way, I've seen women that have got hosed and divorced. Where like they were literally the one that really had their act together, and the other one didn't have their act together nearly as well, and they got screwed just as bad as a man. You're telling every responsible person that has their act together, hey, just go take a fucking gamble. Go take a 50-50 shot. You're going to lose half of what you worked for. Because we got to save the culture. Well, how about you fix the foundational things that are destroying the marriages, that are destroying the culture? Fix that first. Because you should have an ironclad system of like, okay, if you're but no offense to women, I don't think because you changed some fucking diapers, for a handful of years on your kids that you deserve half of what I worked for before I got married. I understand maybe partying up some of it after we got married, but the idea that you look at some of these golden parachute divorces that happen with rich chicks or even just regular chicks. And then look at some of the welfare divorces, where basically you got a guy that's a flop, she's a flop, she gets on the system, she's taken care of. And then I had one buddy who had 2 kids, and all he had to pay was $50 a month for 2 children. And he actually avoided paying that by faking crazy and getting a check. Now the government's paying for him. I see a lot of people out there that are fucking losers that have kids. They're just consumers. They buy shit to feel good, and they teach their kids the same damn mottos. And inevitably, what you're producing is what? Another group of people to pull the plow, another bunch of plow horses. In a world where we're coming into a world full of mechanized tractors that drive themselves, you're still teaching the plow horse social services mentalities. So unless you're willing to fix that problem with the divorce system and all that, please just stop. And I get it. The only reason that a lot of people in Europe and all these other places are all now obsessed with having kids is because they see a bunch of brown people that showed up just the other day, literally living off of their social system. They see literally their culture being replaced by a bunch of other people. But the reality is, you wouldn't need an insane amount of children. You could maintain your culture. You wouldn't need all these foreigners showing up to do the work. You could maintain your culture if you just didn't have a welfare system. If you didn't have the NHS, all the benefits, all the housing, if you didn't fucking pamper people from prenatal to grave, you wouldn't need a huge population. Imagine for a second you didn't have all those taxes on you as well. Same thing in America. Imagine, just for a moment, this would fix your problems. Number one, you don't have a huge welfare system. You don't. If you want to help somebody out, privatize it. Just like the churches or the private groups, the women's help groups, privatize it to where people could go out. If you want to donate to that, you want to give up time or money or whatever, you can do that. You can use it as a tax deduction. Okay, perfectly fine. But with no government programs, just private programs. And watch how quickly things would fix themselves. For instance, all the people that are living on Section 8, imagine they had to go before a group of people in town, the city council or the church, please help us pay our rent. How many times are you going to be help us pay our rent until the city council says, hey, you know what? You guys don't seem to have your act together. And by the way, here's another thought. The people who refuse to get their act together, fucking sterilize them. You got a bunch of sub-IQ, consumer-ass motherfuckers that keep on producing kids. And at this point, they're producing them literally to get bennies from the government. Sterilize them motherfuckers. Like if you're repeatedly putting your children in a bad situation, then yes, you are a child abuser. And at a certain point, if you just let these people oops, better, we have more standards for dogs and cats in society than we do for people on welfare. I don't care what country you're from, that that's the truth. We let dumb people crank out kids. Now, fix these basic problems. Fix the marriage asset divorce court situation to where you're giving mostly men a fair shake, because a lot of times women are the benefactors of that system. But there are some women who really do make it, and they deserve the same fair shake as everybody else. Fix that system. Fix the system that taxes people way too much. And then maybe we'll have a reevaluation of how many people we really need. And by the way, you got a bunch of foreigners in your country, sucking off your welfare. Kick them the fuck out today. The best way to kick them out is first, you just start kicking them off benefits. And then you tell them, hey, we'll give you I don't know, like we're doing here in America, $1,000 to kick them back to some other country. And you watch how many of them are just like, what? The gravy train's over? The free ride buffet is over? I guess we'll head back to whatever country. We got to get a job, and then kick them out to make sure your own native population has let's be honest about it. You got all these sub-IQ, double-digit motherfucker, 80 IQ people in every country you're in. We can't afford to have a bunch of foreigners that are equally as retarded or even intelligent. We can't afford to have those people in our countries when you're literally seeing even the tech sectors. All these tech jobs where people are they're replacing them with AI. Just like every once in a while this happens. There goes through like a locust and destroys a bunch of jobs, destroys things, and it changes things, and the new thing grows out of the ashes of what was old. We can't afford to have a bunch of dummies and then half-ass train people from India or wherever taking these jobs. You fix these problems first, then let's talk about the birth rate population. Because at the core of this entire conversation question is basically a giant government social program. And that's the reality of it. That's all it ever was. That's why you needed people to have more kids. It's really incredibly selfish. And I understand you want to save your culture. I agree with that. But fix the foundational rock solid things that need to be fixed first. Otherwise, all you're doing is mental masturbation to produce people into poverty. You either make something to where it's worth having children into, or you're actually just a horrible person for expecting people to have kids. Because like I said, hero's journey, retirement by 30 in America is absolutely possible. And I imagine you could do it in Europe if you guys didn't fuck up things so bad. So the fact that you're choosing not to do that first tells me you're a bad parent. Because we all can't get big on YouTube like Sargon. Peace. Take it easy.